You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one-on-one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1116. Welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and I am so excited that you are hanging out with me today. Today, we are giving you behind the scenes in regards to our membership communities. And so a lot of our consultants are doing teachings every single week. Every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we have live teachings going on in our membership. So we wanted to give you a little behind the scenes. So we're going to be hearing from Nicole Ball talking about what to do when referrals are slow, HR basics with Andrew, client retention with Ashley, scaling with Nicole Ball, choosing the right project management systems, and all sorts of other things over the coming weeks. I can't wait to dig into this with you. If you want help from one of our consultants, please head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/apply. I'll chat with you for 30 minutes to determine if one of our membership communities or consulting might be right for you. Now let's get started with this episode.
Welcome to the third and final webinar in the series concerning what to do when referrals get slow. I think I know everybody here from previous webinars, but I will, as always, introduce myself, especially for anybody who is watching this as a recorded video. So hi, everybody. My name is Nicole Ball. I'm the owner of Mental Wellness Counseling in Northern Michigan. It is a 7-figure practice with 3 locations, getting ready to open up my 4th. At least I'm moving in that direction, which is really, really exciting and scary all at the same time. Last time I talked to you, I had 28 clinicians, and now I have 31. So I brought on 3 new people in the last week, which I'm really super excited about. One of which who was an old therapist who left and asked to come back, and they left on really great terms. And so I was very excited to have him back because I don't have to train him. So he can just hop right into our health record system and hop right back into his old office. And it's really great. So yeah, so growth is exciting. And as you all know, growth can be scary. So maybe we'll have a series on that in the future. Maybe I'll chat with Jen or Joe about that. How can we do a series on, the excitement and fears of growing and the balance between that. So, but I'm excited to be here today and excited to share all with you some of my experience, specifically on what to do when things get slow. I know we've been talking about this for 3 weeks now. And today's particular topic, I'm going to try my best not to do any repeating of what we talked about in previous webinars of the last 2 weeks. But today is specifically about what you can do quickly, right? So we've talked about knowing your community. We've talked about strategies for marketing. We've talked about ways to kind of build your clientele. And much of that has piggybacked off of some of the other information you've gotten from the Practice of the Practice community. But specifically today, I want to talk about what you can do quickly, right? So you're like, holy moly, we're really down. What can we do? And I've got a couple things for you today. Actually, I have 6 things that I have for you today. As you know, I like my lists and I like to give you homework. So hopefully that works for all of you because it works for me. So number 1, first and foremost, don't panic. And I know I've said this every time we've met together and every time I've done a webinar, but I think it's very in our nature because we are business owners to panic and say, oh no, because when it comes right down to it, we've got bills to pay. And it's not just our own bills at home. Like that's a whole nother story we could talk about another day, but we've got rent to pay and we've got utilities and we have all of our other overhead costs that come into play. And then for some of us who have like admin costs and things like that, that's going to come off the top, right? And so those are things we have to make sure are paid outside of paying our clinicians, because unfortunately what comes last is paying ourselves, right? And so oftentimes what we do is when things start to get slow, we automatically start to go into panic mode and think the worst case scenario. Oh no, what if I lose my practice? Oh no, what if I can't pay my admin? Oh no. And hopefully we don't go that far, but I will ask you something I've asked plenty of times, and I also ask myself every day is, you know what? What's the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario, as scary as it may be, is always survivable. So I know you've heard me say that before, but it's something that has gotten me to take risks in my business. It's something that I have done every time I've opened up a new location. It's something I've done every time I bring on a new clinician or I have to make a big financial decision. What's the worst case scenario? And every single time I'm like, you know what? The worst case scenario would suck, right? It would be inconvenient. It might even hurt me financially a little bit, but the worst case scenario is always survivable. And so that's something I just want to leave you with for number one. So number one, don't panic. Worst case scenario is always survivable. And just remember that there are natural ebbs and flows in our work that we do. And we see it all the time, right? We see the natural ups and downs throughout the year of clients. And I think that's important. Along with the don't panic. Now, I don't have this as as one of my 6 things for today, but along with don't panic, I think it's always important to remember that and plan ahead for slow seasons. So for example, I always know that the end of December is going to be slow. The end of December and the first week of January are always slow. I always warn my clinicians that this time of year is slow because people go on vacations, people take breaks, people take time off because their kids are off of school, people go on vacations, they travel for the holidays, and it's just a natural thing that happens. The end of March, there's always a little lull at the end of March when folks are going on spring break. That's always a slow time. And then another slow time for us is always July. Pretty much the whole month of July is always very, very slow for us because people are going on their family vacations, they're traveling, they're enjoying their families. And so if you've never done that before, I would encourage you to plan ahead for those slow times. And just that way you're ready for them, because when it comes to number one, don't panic. I think this also includes knowing ahead of time what the anticipation for some of those slow times may be. When I'm bringing on new clinicians and they're like, when should I take time off? I say, well, you take time off whenever you like, but here are slow seasons. And here's some of the slow times of year that might be good. And so sure enough, I have a lot of clinicians who take the whole second half of December off. They usually take a long spring break, and most clinicians take the first 2 weeks of July off. So we don't close down, so to speak, but it's much, much slower around here because over the years, we really did see a pattern of when our slow times were. And so it just works out really well for people to take time off during those times. Now, as an owner, though, what that means for me is if it's slow because of clients and it's also slow because clinicians are taking time off, I'm going to have to plan ahead. So I always know that financially, I'm going to have to plan for having extra money set aside, whether it's for my own personal life, whether it's for the overhead of the business, or whatever the case may be. So number one, don't panic. There's natural ebbs and flows. Don't panic. There's always going to be slow times of year, and don't panic. Expect those times. Expect things to be slow sometimes because it happens. There's also another little period right when school starts. So like that first, end of August, first 2 weeks of September is always a little bit slow. And then the kids get into school and then the parents start seeing the behavioral issues and then we ramp right up mid-September. So I think, again, just that natural ebb and flow. So this is going to be different where you are geographically. It's going to be different where you are, whether you're insurance or private pay. So just pay close attention this year and maybe start identifying what those slow seasons are. So next time around, you can start planning ahead for that and maybe even take your vacations around that time too. So something to think about. Okay. Number 2 for you today is going to be take a look at the 2 previous webinars we did on this series. Okay. When things get slow, take a look at what we talked about the 2 previous times and to ask yourself, what can I do right now? What can I do right now? So for example, last week we talked a lot about knowing your community and knowing the communities that your clients are a part of. So if times are slow and I ask myself, okay, what can I do right now? And making reaching out to somebody in the community or reaching out to maybe a possible collaboration I've never thought of before is an option. Now's the time to do it. Things are slow. I'm not as busy. What's something that I can do right now? Now, I'm not going to go over all those things again. So if you weren't here for the 2 previous webinars, make sure you go back and watch those. Those are all going to be available for you to watch and practice the practice. But I put that as number 2 simply because I really think if you are thinking of what's something quick that you can do, if you review that and identify what the possible options are, I'm sure you'll find something that you can do. Now, it might not get you as quick of a return, right? But if you're looking at the longevity of the possibility of referrals, it really is a good idea to look back and identify which of those that you can do. All right. Now, what are we on? We are on number 3. Thank you. I have mentioned this before, but this is a tactic I use specifically if I need quick results. And this is, I reach out to old clients. Now, some people, ethically, people have different thoughts on this. They kind of consider it a fishing technique where it's not necessary. I do it simply because, number 1, from a business perspective, it works. And number 2, I always have clients that say, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I've been wanting to reach out and I just haven't been able to, or I haven't thought of it, or I keep forgetting. Thank you so much for reaching out. How did you know I was struggling right now? So I don't go back too far. I've said in previous webinars, I don't go back farther than a year because I don't want to be knocking on people's doors who I have terminated with. They've moved on and they clearly haven't needed me. But any client that I've terminated with, usually in the last year, 6 months or so, I will do a check-in. And it's simply an email that says, hi, this is Nicole. I'm just checking in to see how things are going, see if you're in need of any services. I hope you're well. If there's any referrals I can make, blah, 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 blah. So just something quick and easy that says, hey, I'm here if you need me. And let's say I send 15 of those emails. I'm usually guaranteed at least 2 to 3 clients that reach back out and say, oh my gosh, thank you for reaching out to me. When's your soonest opening? So if you do that and you get 2 referrals and each of your clinicians do that and they get 2 clients that come back, that's, 10, 20 more clients on your schedule for the following week. So even though it doesn't seem like a lot, like, it's only like 1 or 2 clients out of the 15 emails I'm going to send, if everybody at your practice makes this something regular that they do when they need to, it can be really beneficial. Again, I do like to look at both sides, and I know that some people, this feels icky because it feels like I'm fishing for clients that I've already terminated with. I'm fishing to clients who have already, said and done what they need to say and do. But I also view it as a courtesy to them. It's telling them that, hey, I'm still here if you need me. If you don't, that's fine, but I'm still here. And I do think some clients appreciate that. And again, I'm basing that anecdotally off of their feedback I get from clients and the feedback that some of my, the individuals that I supervise, the feedback that they get. And usually at least there's 1 or 2 people that say, oh my goodness, thank you so much for reaching out. I really, really needed to talk to you. So, and then that's somebody that you can quickly get on your schedule. So again, if today we're looking at quick results, that's something that I find works really well. I actually did it yesterday because I had 2 clients who had taken some time off after that for the beginning of 2024. And we're at about that 4 or 5 month mark. So I just did a quick little, hey, how are you doing? Just checking in, email. One of them emailed back this morning saying, hey, I had my baby. Everything went well. We're at home settling in. I'd love to get on your schedule in about 3 or 4 weeks once, we're more settled in. So I got her on my schedule for the end of May. And if I wouldn't have reached out, she might have been too busy with new motherhood to even think about putting me on her radar. She's got a new baby at home she's only had for a week. And then the other individual reached out and said, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for checking in. I'll reach out if I need anything. So I think it is just another way of just saying, hey, I'm here if you need me. And depending on what your follow-up protocol is, some of you might already have that built into your protocol with you or your clinicians, where you automatically maybe do your 3 or 6 month follow-ups automatically. But we don't have a protocol here. I just encourage people to do it when it feels right. And sometimes it just happens to feel right when you need it to feel right. So if you're needing those referrals, sometimes that's a good way to boost. And also, again, a quick way to boost, because that's what we're talking about. Okay, so that is number 3. I want to pause there for a moment and just see if anybody has any comments or questions. So number 1, not panicking, natural ebbs and flows, ways to take your vacation. Number 2, what can you do right now based on what we talked about the previous 2 webinars? And then number 3, reaching out to old clients and just doing a follow-up and a check-in. So any comments or questions about any of those 3? Carly?
I was curious about hiring someone to help with CEOs. Who have you used before, and how much does that normally cost?
CEOs.
Am I saying that wrong? SEOs. Sorry, SEOs.
I'm like, I don't know about CEOs.
Yes, I'm dyslexic.
I need some help. Help me out. So SEOs. I have never hired anybody. I have never done it. I think I shared in a previous one that I did a lot of the homework just on my own, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, did the best I could to have search terms right on my front page, have, menu bars that have specific search terms, have blogs that have specific search terms and headings and subheadings. And that's kind of what I did. But there are lots of great resources. Has anybody here ever used a specific resource and maybe know how much it would cost? I've heard huge ranges. I've heard ranges anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. So, I don't know what would be particularly for your area, but no, I've never hired anybody for that. But I mean, I have to say, I had such good luck on YouTube. If you just go to YouTube and how do I boost my SEO? I remember this was years ago when I was trying to lose some baby weight. I was on the treadmill every morning just watching SEO videos and then taking it for my work day and working on it. So yeah. Any other questions? Don't panic. Any of the previous stuff we can do quickly, and then reaching out to old clients. All right. Now, number 4 is something that we've already talked about, but again, today's topic is what can you do quickly, and what you can do quickly is get a Google ad. Okay. I know that it costs money, and I know that people try to avoid it. I try to avoid it as much as possible, but it is a way to boost yourself quickly, especially if you're ranking pretty low. So if you're ranking, let's say, 12th on Google for counseling in your area, that means you're not coming up on the first page. So if you're not coming up on the first page, a Google ad is a good way to get you right to the top really quick, and you'll get more clicks. If you get more clicks, your SEO goes up. And if you get more clicks, there's the more possibility that you get clients quickly. So I know I talked about this before, but know where you rank on Google. Your ranking changes every day, right? But know where you rank. Have somebody else from a different computer see where you rank, because some of your key search terms might be different on your computer or your computer search history. So find a way to identify where it is that you're ranking on Google. And remember, if you're not coming up on the first page, very rarely is somebody going to click on you. And if you count on Google, if you count on your web search as your main way of getting clients, and you're not coming up on the first page, that's a miss right there. So make sure that you're seeking out opportunities for that. I don't know about you, but if I'm looking for a plumber or a restaurant, I'm looking at the first page, whatever pops up. I don't have the patience or the energy or the time to look past the second page when I'm looking for something. And so our clients are doing the same thing. They're typing in counseling in Houston, Texas, and they are looking at whoever comes up on the first page, and they're going to click on those websites. Now, sometimes they're looking for something specific, and sometimes they have the time and energy to really search, and good for those clients who put in all that research when they're looking for a therapist. Same thing with Psychology Today. So just keeping that in mind, know where you rank. And then getting a Google ad will get you to the top really quick. And so that's a quick way. Again, is the turnover right away? No. But if you put your ad out and it's live on a Monday and you get 3 extra calls or 4 extra calls that week, chances are those folks are on your schedule for next week. So that's 3 new clients on your team's schedule the following week. So keep in mind that Google Ads, as much as we don't want to pay for them, we want our SEO to do the work for us. So as much as we don't want to pay for them, it really does pay off when we need it to pay off usually. I want to pause there because I just want to know other people's experience with Google Ads, because I've heard the good and the bad from both folks in this community and also other folks that I work with in my local community. So does anybody have anything they want to share about, tips or tricks for Google Ads, their experience with Google Ads, whether it worked for them or it didn't? Anybody want to share anything?
I can share something.
Thank you.
A couple of weeks ago, I was in one of these. I can't remember if it was the last one or the one before, where I had said that I had turned Google's ads off and actually got like way more reach outs. So then I was like, okay, well, let me turn it back on and see what happens. But I did the ad a little bit differently. And I took out, so Google will like suggest, if you've never put one together, Google will like suggest things that you should do. And it's like expert counselor, like things like that don't really resonate. Like I would never like say that or put it on my website. And so I took all of that stuff out. So it's like my practice called Our Whole Living Counseling, like individual and couples counseling, like just like very super basic. And that actually, super basic, not like weird leading braggy, whatever. And so it was the first 2 weeks of April ish that it was off and we were doing really well. And then like the last 2 weeks that it's been on, and it's performed way better than the old ad that I had, where with all that other like weird jargon in it. So I don't know that that's enough data to really go by, but I did find it interesting.
Yeah, well, it's data worth something. That anecdotal data I think is worth a lot, right? Because now and next time you're going to know not to, when I'm looking for a therapist, I'm not looking for like super awesome, amazing, best therapist in Michigan. I'm just looking for somebody who does what I need, and then I'll click on them and check them out. And if it looks inviting, I'll continue to click, right? That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's actually really, really helpful because, Google makes these suggestions and we're like, oh, thanks, Google. You know what's best, right? But sometimes they don't. So I always put myself in the shoes of the person looking, right? If I am somebody who is desperate for a counselor, my anxiety's peaked, my marriage is not doing well, my kids are fighting all the time. If I'm in that desperate mode and I'm looking, what is it that I'm going to be looking for and what's going to resonate with me? Because we can try to put ourselves in, we can try to sell ourselves all day, but if we put ourselves in our client's shoes, we know what we're looking for. We know what we need. And we know when you're in that feeling of desperation, because it takes a lot to type that in, right? It takes a lot to type in marriage counselor in my area. That's a huge first step. And when people are there, they want to feel safe doing that. And sometimes simple is the best way to do it. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
I can add a little. I have a primarily private pay out of network practice, and we're really super niche. We have attachment-based therapy, so we do parent-child relationship therapy. And I started out with Google Ads just doing them myself and did I think understanding the different ads is really important and what they all do. Because display ads, those are the easiest, right? You just go and sign up and then Google sort of does the work for you and they choose your keywords and you have to go through and weed out all the really bad keywords every single day. But that'll get you a ton of clicks to your website, but it doesn't necessarily convert to clients because it's just people on YouTube clicking, oh, look at this, that's interesting. And so I did that for quite a while to get our numbers up on our website. And then I moved to a search ad through Google, just kind of following some people on just different podcasts or on YouTube, learning a little bit about Google Ads. I unfortunately don't have the money to pay someone to do it, but have just recently converted to the search ads. And I think it's been so interesting because it's we've got our numbers up on the website and now we're converting to people who are actually looking for specific keywords, thinking our clients think, you mentioned of, I don't think bad kid, bad behavior. but that is kind of what clients are typing in. So, and I'm
right. Clients aren't typing in parent-child attachment therapy.
No one's doing that. No one's looking for that. But they're saying, like, my kid is out of control. What do I do? Or parent support in, Denver. And so just knowing, like, and unfortunately, sometimes I have a reaction to those key terms, those keyword terms of like, oh, I don't like that. But how can I frame it in a way that a parent feels accepted and wants to reach out and call and still acknowledge that the child is not a bad person and not a bad kid? And just how can we get them in the door to start the work? So I think that's been, I don't know, I kind of think of Google Ads as sort of fun in thinking those things through and seeing what responses we can get. And I have 3 new ones going on a search ad. And it's fun to kind of wait and see. Google does their investigative period where they're sort of deciding what works for you and what doesn't. And so I'm in that phase right now, moving from the display ads where I got like 1,000 visitors a month to our website to now like really wanting more intentional people coming to our website that are looking specifically for couples therapy for parents, parent-child therapy that incorporates the child and the parent in the room, and just making sure people can find us based on what exactly they're looking for.
Thank you for sharing that. That's great insight, because I think one of my somebody I was consulting with, they were putting in the keyword cognitive behavioral therapy as like a key search term, and our clients don't know those terms. They might if somebody told them you need CBT, right? But the regular old person who just has some anxiety and wants to work through some stuff isn't going to know those key term words. So taking that out made a big difference. So yeah, that's a great way to frame that. So thank you for that. Thank you, everybody. I think that's definitely something that is to keep in mind. And again, if we're looking at quick solutions, that's the way to do it.
I am so excited about Alma. When I had my private practice, I struggled building my caseload, attracting the right clients, managing the business side. And honestly, one of the reasons I didn't take insurance was it was so difficult to navigate. So many of my consulting clients deal with these problems as well. And Alma supports clinicians in building rewarding private practices with simplified insurance credentialing in under 45 days, enhanced reimbursement rates, and guaranteed 2-week payback. Plus a free profile in their searchable, filterable directory, making it easy for clients who are the right fit for your practice to find you. Learn more about how Alma could support your private practice at helloalma.com/Joe. That's hello, ALMA.com/Joe to learn more.
Okay, number 5. Remember, I only have 6 for you today. So number 5 is an email outreach. And I know this feels icky to people because it feels like you're trying to sell yourself and it feels like you're reaching, but you know what? You are. So why not just do it and not don't feel bad about it. No apologies, right? Just reach out to people and let them know, hey, we have openings. But the trick that I use is I make it sound exclusive. Okay. So what I do is I say something, I wish I had my template still. I used to have a template for this. Something along the lines of, traditionally we have a very long wait list, but recently we've been able to move folks off of our wait list and currently have openings for new clients. So when you use terminology like that, you make it really sound like it's like exclusive, like, hey, we always have a wait list and now we don't. So if you want to hop on this train, do it now, kind of a deal. And you might not get, everybody reaching back out, but I reached out to our local hospital. I reached out to our local school social workers. I reached out to 2 other practices that we bounce referrals back and forth off of. You don't have to be competitive with other practices in your area. You can be collaborative. And there was one more. The pediatric doctor, the pediatricians. We have 2 pediatrician offices. So I reached out to all of them. It was just an email to the people that I have on my email list and said, hey, it's Nicole from Mental Wellness Counseling. just letting you know that we traditionally have a pretty long wait list, but we've brought on some new clinicians and we've been able to move people off our wait list. And that means we have immediate openings for folks. So if you have any referrals, please send them quickly before we start to get a wait list again, basically. That's a really good way to get quick referrals. I would say from the school social worker, we got 2 immediate referrals, and from the pediatrician, we got an immediate referral. So that was 3 immediate referrals that we had on our schedule for the following week. And then the hospital, they take a minute, right, for their communication because there's a lot of people over there. But the behavioral health unit at the hospital was, by the time they were able to forward the email to everybody on the behavioral unit, about 3 weeks later, we saw a real influx of clients being discharged from inpatient, getting sent directly to us. So literally the referral was being faxed right to us. And for a while, they quit faxing us referrals because we were just like, we don't have any room. But when we sent out that email, they were like, oh, they have room. And now, sure enough, we continue to get those direct fax referrals. All they needed for us to do was raise our hand and say, hey, we're still here. Hey, we've got openings. Hey, you want to get on this wait list? Because we don't have one right now. Or you don't want to get on the wait list. So an outreach to your collaborators, so people that you collaborate with, people that were identified in the communities that we talked about in last week's webinar, and then additionally, just other therapists in your area. We have a tight-knit group in Northern Michigan of private practice therapists that we have a Facebook page for. And it's just called Traverse City Private Practice Therapist is all it is. But all of us in private practice are in that Facebook page. And if you check every single day, somebody's saying, who can take a 14-year-old who has priority health, who needs to be seen right away? Who can take somebody with Medicaid, looking for somebody who specializes in eating disorders or whatever. So not just the community collaborators that you work with, but also your local colleagues. You might call them your competition if you want to, but other local therapists are definitely a great way to get quick referrals because I don't know about you, but every once in a while we get those clients that aren't quite a fit for us, for our practice, or for my clinicians. And so I would rather send them to somebody who's a better fit than just take them for the sake of taking them. And if I'm thinking that way, my hope is that other practice owners and practitioners are feeling and thinking that same way too. So just a quick email to them, just letting them know, hey, we've got openings, give us a call, check out our website, do a, email our intake coordinator, whatever it is. But this is a quick way to get referrals. And it's also a really quick way too, just to kind of email blast everybody and just see what happens. I talked a lot about community last week, and I have to say, I don't think we'd be where we are if it wasn't for some of our community collaboration and just having a presence in the community. Because when somebody goes to the hospital or goes to their doctor or goes to their pediatrician and say, hey, I'm really thinking about a counselor, you want your name to be at the top of that doctor's brain. You want your name to be at the top of that nurse's brain, whatever it is. So the more you're known in the community, the more people know your name, the more people recognize your logo, the more presence you have, the more you're going to get referrals just from word of mouth. And I think that's a great place to start, is just knowing your community. And then again, for those quick results, reaching out to the people that you collaborate with and, just doing an email blast. But make sure it sounds exclusive. Make sure it sounds like, well, we don't usually have openings, but now we do. That seems to work. Actually, I can't say I know it works, but I put it in there and we get good feedback. So any comments on this? Anybody have good luck or bad luck with email outreach? I know people have yucky feelings about email outreaches because people are getting tons of emails every day, and I don't read every email I get every day. And I also don't like emails that don't sound personable, right? I get emails at least twice a week from a local, they're not local, but they're in Michigan, a rehab center. Hey, we've got beds available. We got beds available. And that's great, but I don't know who you are. And this is just a form email, and I don't know anything about you. And there's like these pictures, and that's great. But if they get an email from you, hey, this is Nicole from so-and-so. Sometimes it feels just a little bit more, it's better to come from you than to come from your marketing person, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So any thoughts or feelings on that? Any experiences you want to share? And I always say, if it works for other people, why can't it work for me? An example I have is last week, I got an email from a local dietitian that I've referred to in the past, but she went off on her own and started her own practice. And she does a lot of stuff with gut health, eating disorders, people's relationship with food, I mean, she's just, she's really great. And I used to make referrals to her, but now she's going off on her own. So she reached out last week and she said, hey, just wanted to let you know I'm off on my own. I'm accepting referrals. This is what I do. And I took that email that she sent to me. I forwarded it to all 30 of my clinicians and said, hey, everybody, there's a good new referral for, any of your clients who are experiencing disordered eating or gut health issues. Her name's Gina. She's been in the game for a while and she's starting her own practice. Gina emailed me this morning and said, holy moly, thank you so much. I've gotten 3 referrals from your clinicians already. So again, I like to think if it's working for these other people, why can't it work for me? But if Gina wouldn't have sent that email to me, we would have never gotten her those referrals. And how great is it to collaborate with other people in our community? So, all right, number 6. I don't know how you're going to feel about this one, but I try to practice this as much as possible. And it kind of goes along with number 1, not panicking. So number 6 is just accept that this is a slow time and use it. Use the slow time. Okay. As a practice owner, I don't know about you, but I have got so much on. This is just my list for this week of just things that I want to do. Right. And when I have clients back to back and I have supervision back to back and I have, whatever it else is that I'm doing, plus trying to raise my family and take care of my dogs. Right. Like, I don't have time for some of those little projects like, developing an intern checklist or creating a Google ad or putting that curriculum together for that group that I've always wanted to start. There's just things that as practice owners, we just don't have time for, right? But we have the things that we want to do. They exist on a list like this, or they exist in our head, or they exist somewhere on our calendar that we just keep moving and moving and moving. So because there's natural ebbs and flows in private practice, I really encourage folks to accept the slow times and use it to take a break for yourself and then use it to catch up on things. I'm really behind on my notes right now. I had 2 clients cancel this morning. Now my notes are caught up, right? I could have been upset that I had 2 clients cancel on me. I could have been upset that one of them, they were a new intake, so I'm not going to see that money. I'm not going to see it, right? But instead I said, you know what, I'm going to catch up. And that, that feeling when you're all caught up on your notes, you know what I'm talking about, right? I love that feeling. And so if you can accept the slow times to catch up on things that you normally would not have the time to do, just use it. Just use the time and accept it as a gift. Because I think when we see it as something that is negative, we panic and we get scared and it doesn't feel good. So if we can use it for good and use it as a gift, the gift of time is something that we don't get very often. And once it's gone, we don't ever get it back. So use the time that you have to catch up on things and do those projects that you usually wouldn't be able to do. Okay. So I don't know how people feel about me including you all in this, but I'm a professor at heart, so I love including people on things. So sorry, not sorry. Out of all 6 things that I mentioned today, I'd love to hear from all of you if possible, but I understand if people don't want to share, but I'd love to hear what's one thing that you're like, yes, I've never thought about that way before. I've never considered that. That's something that I'm going to do. And I'd like you to share like how you're going to do it. So if anybody's willing to share today, I'd love for you to share and maybe give some ideas to other people about how you can use one of the 6 tips today and what that would look like. Again, I think we should learn from each other, not just me. Anybody want to share?
I'll go. The idea of reaching out to old clients, my business partner and I recently started a group practice. And so I really like the idea of having, you said you don't have it as a part of your follow-up protocol for your clinicians. I kind of like having it as a part of the follow-up protocol and have that be woven within the culture. And since we're still new enough, it wouldn't be a challenge to have that happen. And just like, hey, 3 months after, 6 months after, whatever it looks like. And then it could even be something that could be incorporated into the consent for services, as we're rolling it out with our people. I roll out some of that stuff when I do my consent. So that's one of the ideas that I'm tinkering with that we could implement like this week. So I'm excited to figure out what that looks like.
Oh, good. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I've often thought about putting it in my consent, but because all 30 of my clinicians are 1099s and they all, to some degree, do their own thing with certain items, I don't want to put that in the consent. So what I do is I tell my clients when we're having like our last meeting, I always say, expect a follow-up from me via email, just to check in. I'm just going to see how you're doing. They don't really know when to expect it, so I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. But yeah, I think you're definitely new enough to where you could wove it into the culture you're trying to create. And then as you train people who come on board, it'll just kind of be a part of what you do. So I love that. That's a great idea. Anybody else want to share anything that resonated with them today and how they're going to do it?
I can follow up with what she was saying. So, just based on something that worked for me just last week, actually. So, I'm private pay. And so like sometimes, and I don't know how everybody else works here or if insurance dictates this or not, but sometimes people will say, hey, I just want to take a little pause. And I'm like, great, that's totally fine with me. But when they say it, it's with the presumption that, hey, I want to come back eventually. But a lot of times what happens is, 3 to 9 months go by and I haven't heard from them. And so I have in the past reached out and said, done these email things. But I'm pregnant right now. And so I'm having to go on maternity leave. So the need is a little bit more for not just like, hey, do you want to schedule? It's like, hey, do you want to schedule? Because if not, I'm going to be unavailable for 3 months after that. Right. And so what I did this time was I put a line in there that said, if I don't hear from you or if you're not scheduled, if you don't request an appointment virtually by June 1st, then I'm going to discharge you from my caseload. What does that mean? It means that it's blah, blah, blah. What it means, you're welcome to reach back out. It just means that you have to go through the new client process again, fill out paperwork. And putting that in there, people were like, oh my God, I'm getting on your schedule in May. And so I was like, oh, wow, like giving them a little bit of a deadline for not just like open-ended, like, hey, how are you doing? Do you want to check back in? I found was really helpful. And then some people were like, hey, actually, you know what? I'm great. Thanks. Good luck. Adios. So for me, it had a lot more clarity, but definitely got more appointments booked.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's interesting you share that. One of my clinicians just went on maternity leave, and in January, she had done the same thing, and she had like 4 clients that had just kind of fallen off the radar.
Mm-hmm.
They back up, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I want to come see you." And they established regular sessions with her right up until April 1st, when she went on maternity leave, and are already on her schedule again for when she gets off.
Mm-hmm.
If she wouldn't have done that reach out, they would have just stayed out in the universe, and she probably wouldn't have heard from them again until a crisis happened, right? So yeah, that's a great idea. Putting that deadline on is a really good idea. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else have anything that resonated with them? Google ads, old client check-ins, email outreaches, using the time for yourself, not panicking. Anything else work for anybody?
I definitely use the get stuff off my to-do list when I have people not show up or have a slow season. So that's definitely something that I do. But I like the idea of following up, with people in 3 to 6 months. I think that's a great idea as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, sometimes I get clients who are like, no, I'm good. Thanks for checking in. But I really do get those clients that are like, thank you so much. You've been on my mind. I've been meaning to reach out. And that always feels good because it feels like this kind of like interstellar connection of like, oh, they needed me and I just knew it. When really that's probably not the case, right? But I just needed some clients. But it works. April?
I have already kind of implemented I'm going to call it my letter writing campaign. So I'm going to reach out. We're noticing a huge uptick in divorced families, unfortunately, and children needing support for the separation and helping parents kind of cope with that. So I'm going to start with attorneys in our area. And I looked in just our zip code, and within like a half a mile, there is like 10 divorce attorneys. So
Right.
I'm going to start there, and then kind of go based off of sort of what type of call we're getting, make sure I'm reaching out on a regular basis. And then I did talk with my clinical supervisor about reaching out to clients that we've closed previously and just doing that follow-up and making sure that felt comfortable for her. So she's thinking on it. But I want to implement it as like a policy that we do every 6 months. And, you know, we're attachment based, we're relationship based. So it really fits. Like we do want to know how you are, whether or not you want to come back. We just kind of are curious how you're doing. So those are things I think we're going to do. Like I'm actively starting those.
Awesome. Just a little tidbit too, when you reach out to the divorce attorneys, make sure and use the word co-parenting counseling. So even if you don't necessarily offer co-parenting, I mean, a lot of the attachment work you're doing is, you know, that co-parenting. And as soon as we put the word co-parenting in there, we got so many referrals from lawyers and from the court because that's what that's ultimately oftentimes what they see they need the help with. So we get a lot of referrals for that specifically.
We do a lot of co-parenting therapy. And so I was thinking very specifically about drafting those letters specifically to what attorneys might be looking for. And that sounds like what most of our families are calling about.
And don't be afraid to use Chat GPT. I know that people don't feel great about AI all the time, but can it whip up some beautiful collaboration letters very quickly? And I was weary at first, but that first collaboration letter it wrote for me, I had to change a few things, and I was like, "There's no way I could have done this. No way. Thank you." Anna, did you have something you wanted to share too?
Well, I thought that with the emails, just the concept of like a warm email versus like a cold email, particularly around residential treatment centers and things like that. We have a lot of those in our area. So I do think I'm going to try that out because we're trying to build out more of our teen program. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of the teens are right now. I appreciated that perspective.
Yeah. Well, we talk so much about personal connections and, you know, whether our collaborators have time for it or not, it still feels good, right? That email I got from Gina last week, like it was beautiful. It was, "Hey, Nicole, how are you doing? I started my own practice. I'm taking new referrals." And it was so much better than if she would have just sent me this form email that everybody's getting the same thing, you know, with a picture of her logo that says accepting new clients. Like, you know, it was just, it was much more well received. And so I always say, if it works for them, why can't it work for me? So, all right. Thank you all for sharing today. I love the participation and I appreciate it. And again, I think we can all learn from each other and get ideas from each other, and why not do that? So I know that it kind of goes with kind of what Joe does with the What's Working webinars, but I think us over here in the group practice boss world, we can do that too. So thank you all for being here today. So hopefully you took something from this 3-series webinar that is going to help you to boost referrals, gave you some ideas for long-term referrals, long-term relationships, long-term community collaboration, but also some of that short-term, like quick, how do I get clients? And I think the overarching theme that you heard throughout all 3 of the webinars was don't panic. There's going to be natural ebbs and flows. It's okay. And the worst case scenario is always survivable. So hopefully that resonated with you. And I will see you next time. I'm on schedule for a webinar. I am accepting consulting clients currently if anybody's interested in working with me. Thank you all for being here, and I'll stick around if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, have a great, great Tuesday, and I'll see y'all later.
Nicole, I wanted to ask, how do you feel about just having the admin send out those follow-up emails?
I guess it depends on what kind of access your admin has. I think it should come from the clinician, is what I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it comes from the admin. Are you talking about the collaboration emails or the client emails?
The client emails.
Yeah, I think it should come from the clinician just because that's the person they built the relationship with. I think if it comes from the admin, it does feel like phishing.
Okay.
And it's kind of impersonal. So I always say, make sure it comes from the clinician because that's the person they have a relationship with. And that's the person they're going to be like, oh my gosh, thank you for reaching out.
Okay. Do you have, I know you have 1099, so do you give your clinicians emails or do they all have to use their own like personal Gmail?
They all have their own email that I give. So
But it
I
is,
give, yep. And it's like $6 a month per person. It's just part of those overhead costs. If it were ever argued that that is an employee thing, I argue that to stay in professional, I call it, in my contract, I call it professional compliance, right? In order for us to look professional, they do need to have the email that goes along with it. So yep, the email and then access to our EHR is something that I cover. And that's included in them getting started with me.
right.
And it is tricky with 1099s, right? You just never
Yeah.
know.
And that's one of the things that I had heard. Like, don't give them an email, don't give them business cards, because all of
We
that.
give them an email. We don't give them business cards. I have general business cards that are just general that the stacks of they can take if they want.
Yeah.
But anything with their name on it, they are responsible for. But in the email, I say that it's part of professional compliance. So in order for us to be professional, we all have to have the same email.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. And if I do decide, or if me and my business partner decide at one time that we want to consult with you, is there a way we contact you?
So you would contact Jen.
Okay.
And I'm sure you have her information. Yeah. Just contact Jen and let her know what you're interested in, and she'll get you all set up and let you know what packages are available and how that all works, which I have no idea. She's the master of those things.
Oh, okay.
I help when I'm needed.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Those were the
all right.
questions. Okay. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Nicole.
Hi.
Hey. I had a quick question. If it's out of the scope of this webinar, then that's totally fine. I was just curious about how your practice reaches out to attorneys with like the co-parenting and things like that. We've been getting a big influx as well, but what I'm noticing is there's a lot of like court order therapy that I'm not totally sure we're equipped for. And so I'm wondering if you have any insight on like, you know, are there attorneys who will just refer without that court order or what you're going to find?
Yeah, it really depends on the kind of lawyer they are. So some lawyers just they'll say, hey, there's this practice that does co-parenting, or there's this practice that works with people who are going through a divorce. Here's their information, and then we just hear directly from them. Some attorneys like to put it right in the court order so that both parents have to oblige by it. What I do let lawyers know, though, is if it's put in a court order and we don't feel like we're the best fit, we can't be obligated to provide services, right? So I'll give you an example. For example, we had, what was it? I guess this doesn't have to do with divorce, but it was a CSC charge, and none of the clinicians wanted to touch it. And so I was able to go back to the lawyer and say, this is not something that we are equipped to work with. Here's some ideas, but you need to get our name out of that court order, basically. So lawyers, because it's the lawyers who make that determination as to whether or not they wanted to put it in the court order. And then it's up to the judge. It's up to the judge if he wants to sign that court order. And we also work with friend of the court too. So sometimes friend of the court will put it in an order as well. So it really depends on who you're working with, but don't ever be afraid to just say like, we're not equipped for this. Because, from that ethical perspective, it wouldn't be ethical to do that. But at the same time, I always say, give it a try and see how it feels, because it might end up being a really good relationship. And then it's just about training your clinicians to be very careful with their notes, because their notes likely will be called to court. And they will have to probably go to the stand and stand on the court. They probably will have to, issue a letter, so just make sure that your clinicians feel safe with that. But also don't be afraid to just give it a try and see how it feels.
Do you have any recommendations for trainings for clinicians on those types of things?
Oh, I don't have any in mind. I wish there was. I mean, I'm sure there are. I'm just not really sure. If they're social workers, I would check with the NASW and I'm just see what the NASW has. Also, the American Psychological Association. Sometimes they have those webinars and they do cost money, but I would just check out and see what they have to start with and then go from there. I know that for me, it just started in my nonprofit world where I was, doing supervised visitations for the court, and I just kind of got used to that court documentation and just kind of shuffled right into it. But yeah, I would check out NASW or the APA and see what comes up there to start with.
Thanks, Nicole. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. All right. Hopefully I'll see you at the next one.
Well, thank you so much for listening to the Practice of the Practice podcast today. These trainings are available in our membership communities. Now, we're going to be opening up our membership communities more than just when we're opening Level Up Week. So if there's one that you are interested in, I would love for you to head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/membership, where there's more details and you can get notifications when those open up. So if you are in solo practice, just getting going, if you are building and sustaining a sustainable solo practice, Next Level Practice is for you. If you are looking to launch a group practice launch is for you, and Group Practice Boss is for all those group practice bosses out there. We are so excited to bring these types of things to you as much as we can so that you can level up your practice in a way that's just amazing. Head on over to Alma's website, helloalma.com/Joe, if you want help with credentialing, if you want help with reimbursement rates and a guaranteed 2-week payback. Again, that's helloalma.com/Joe. Thank you for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.